Seeing that I've concentrated enough time being critical of the ham-fisted implementation of identity politics within the construct of the supposed Tolkienian offering, and seeing that poking fun at its expense and to this point can be deemed as lazy at best or far too easy, akin to the picking of low-hanging fruit.
Ha ha! Dangly part.
With that said, and upon viewing episode 7, yes, this was my first time, as I'd prior given up on the show around episode 5, I do intend here to retread to a prior subject only briefly covered in more detail. And I must confess, before I began tumbling down far too many rabbit holes, to the question of the laziness involved in this remake. And yes, I call this a remake, as it unapologetically pilfers from past work and without hesitation leans upon it as if it were a crutch. Simply put, does the Rings of Power introduce anything new and of value and unique in quality to the existing world building, let alone improve upon what we've already available? There are times when remakes can prove mightily effective, even with the exploration of Tolkien's work, looking to Ralph Bakshi's 1978 efforts, and what Peter Jackson accomplished with his trilogy from 2001 and subsequent Hobbit trilogy from 2012, where he reached a whole new audience and created an even larger empire from the existing intellectual property. And here, it would seem to me the creators struggled to navigate the remaking of earlier efforts for modern audiences while bringing new content that added something original to the existing world building to light. Now, I'm not going to include a counter here to perpetuate an ill-advised drinking game for when a direct retread, even rip-off, occurs, for I do not wish to further burden the struggling health systems of the world over, even if by a single viewer, although I make no promises for myself, as I must get through this all over again. At any rate, we begin episode 7 with Alicia, our namesake Galadriel, having no injury to her person, and despite it appearing she'd been engulfed within the cataclysm of smoke and flame, she roams about the wreckage of the Southlands village and amid the cast of Dorito dust in search of survivors. She first encounters the coughing and spluttering Theo, and then we cut to Isildur, having found his friend dead beneath some rubble. Oh no! He was my favourite! Rest in peace, one whom I can't remember his name. Ontimo? Something of the like. He reminded me of Eddie from Jurassic Park 2. You know, the one friend who was always destined to cark it at some point during the season, if not inevitably becoming T-Rex chow. We then have Queen Regent Muriel, Isildur, and Valandil? Honestly, so little has gone into the development of certain characters that many just come across as that guy, or that girl, or whatever they identify as. At any rate, the trio scurry to save the villagers. Queen Regent Muriel is blinded in her efforts, and Isildur is also crushed beneath the burning debris. I'm sure he'll be fine though, just a hunch. Unless this isn't the true Isildur, or exists in an entirely different universe, even a multiverse. We return to the Brandyfoot's wagon, where they encounter the fate that befell the Grove, and in the wake of Mount Doom's eruption. Sadok Burrows recollects his great-grand speaking of mountains that could spit fire rock.
He said they'd go to sleep, sometimes for hundreds of years, only to wake up again when a new evil was rising.
A new power is rising. Its victory is at hand.
Everybody got that? Good.
Chanting an incantation, not Gandalf seeks to heal the Grove.
Sadok, trees don't talk.
It's talking, Mary. The tree is talking.
Says Melva Meadowgrass. I had to look up the character's name, but essentially that absolute Karen from a prior episode who sought to decaravan the Brandyfoots for Not Gandalf's cartoonish hijinks. When Not Gandalf seeks to revive a damaged tree, and despite it seeming that Not Gandalf has failed, and when a branch breaks off and nearly crushes the child Hobbit and Nori, from out sprouts a single shoot that shall soon become much more foreboding. Is it possible that Not Gandalf here is in fact Radagast the Brown? Returning to Khazad-dûm, we have young Ned Stark seeking to barter for Mithril with the exchange of game, grain, and timber from the outer forests of Eriador for the next 5 centuries.
Why should we trust an elf?
The king asks, humbling himself. Young Ned Stark kneels, imploring the king to save his people. Upon speaking to his son, King Durin reasons,
All things must one day be consumed and fade away to ash. I will not risk dwarven lives to help the elves cheat death.
Predictably, Prince Durin protests on his friend's behalf, but the king is having none of it.
The fate of the elves was decided many years ago. My mind's much wiser, much farther seeing than our own.
As I've stated before, the scenes in Khazad-dûm persist to be, at least in my opinion, the most interesting of this show's meandering narratives. Granted, the use of Mithril as the supposed healing or MacGuffin reeks of laziness, the repurposing of the valuable material we already recognise in prior adaptations being used as more for armour or ornamental sake.
Mithril, as light as a feather, and as hard as dragon scales.
Mithril. You are full of surprises, Master Baggins.
But the relationships, even conflicts here, bring something more engaging to the forefront. We have a king who would appear knows something about what potentially dwells beneath his kingdom. Why he doesn't simply inform his son? Well, that is also somewhat intriguing. Furthermore, Durin's resentment for how quickly his father can dismiss the lives of his allies is equally palpable and further raises questions about the strained racial relations between dwarves and elves. Understandably, an angry Disa loses her temper and reasons with her husband about others that had shared their support to undermine the king, and whether they can find a safer alternative to mine Mithril. Once more, and despite the actress Sophia Nimvetti being so overly vocal when speaking out about real-world identity politics, she continues to be really strong in her role as the supportive yet fiery wife and princess of Khazad-dûm. Dare I say it, I find the exchanges between her, Prince Durin, and young Ned Stark to be even fun. The prince and young Ned Stark have a somewhat touching moment, albeit undermined by horrific dialogue. It means go towards goodness. The Mithril then begins reacting with the leaf. Returning to the Southlands, must we? Alicia has a moment with Theo where she restrains him from throwing away his life needlessly in pursuit of revenge. I also wish to point out this scene, as it perfectly exemplifies the notion of calling this ill-advised offering a remake. Consider for a moment the tension and the stakes for the characters involved.
Shut it.
We have 4 halflings cowering beneath the horrors of one of the Nazgul, and we have Alicia here, scourge of the orcs and with the power to make orcish constructs literally explode. Suffice to say, one scene carries more tension than the other. I'll leave it to you to surmise as to which one I refer. Alicia then acknowledges that all which has happened is her fault. Wow, okay. We have here a moment of self-reflection. I mean, I prior questioned why it took her so long, or anyone for that matter, to examine the retrieved artifact, this mystery box hilt. Are we in for some true character development here? Has someone spiked my drink? Is this show slowly becoming palatable? It darkens the heart to call dark deeds good. Nope, no such luck. She was always bound to deteriorate into more word salad.
Pillow Pants joined forces over Embargo Pylons.
What cannot be known hollows the mind. Fill it not with guesswork.
You aren't sailing past honor for the liking of a room. These questions are birthday basements. To end the blue radish is the upside of luxury, and sparking a good lizard can only make tears fall in hindsight.
And so it continues, not only the poor dialogue, but with how they persistently seek to now make her this wise old sage, this veteran of many wars, when we've seen this version's Galadriel so pig-headed, bereft of common courtesy and even common sense, and with her persistent warmongering. Well, she just comes across here as a total hypocrite. Is it intentional? Honestly, I have no idea at this point. Come to think of it, she somewhat comes across as a politician, saying one thing and then doing the exact opposite. Is this all intentional on the part of the creators to explore this learning curve to becoming the Galadriel, although it would seem difficult to recover a character from so low approval ratings from the outset?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Be wary. The orcs will move in daylight now. Regarding killing orcs, she tutors Theo. It gives place for evil to thrive inside us. Is this self-reflection, or is she here just projecting? I mean, she has only come to realize and question her own motivations, her actions and behavior. At least, I think that is what she's doing. It's sort of difficult to tell. The acting is just so stilted and unconvincing, but it just makes her condescending here to begin preaching from her very recently constructed podium. And then she answers Theo re his question of loss, and who she'd also lost to the orcs. My brother, Finrod, and my husband, Celeborn. Celeborn? The Celeborn? Well, we needn't any longer circulate those lost and found posters. Back with the survivors, we linger on Elendil, and with his gaze fixed upon Isildur's horse, desperate to see that his son still lives. The Queen Regent arrives with Elendil, and Elendil here comes to learn of his son's demise.
Where is he? Where is my son?
Where is Theodred? Where is my son?
Again, it's like poetry, sort of they rhyme.
We also receive a reveal of sorts that Queen Regent Muriel is now blind.
I see only grey. Keep walking, both of you. Guide my horse. Nobody need to notice.
Back with the Half-Foots, Sadok Burrows directs not Gandalf to where the nearest giant person settlement would reside. We have a retelling of E.T. where Nori hands not Gandalf an apple before he sets off.
I'm just a Harfoot. That's all I'll ever be.
We don't belong here, Mary. It's too big for us. What can we do in the end?
Returning to Alicia and Theo,
What you said before, it isn't your fault, it's mine.
says Theo.
You did not intend for this to happen.
Seeing you earlier intended to accept blame, does that suggest you did intend for this to happen?
I gave power to the enemy, so that makes me responsible.
Theo replies.
Some say that is the way of things, but I believe the wise also look upon what is in our hearts, and this was not in yours.
Do not take the burden of this day upon your shoulders, Theo. You may find it difficult to put it down again.
Do not let the great emptiness of Khazad-dûm fill your heart, Gimli, son of Gloin. For the world has grown full of peril.
There are powers beyond darkness at work in this world. Perhaps on days such as this, we have little choice but to trust to their design.
There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it.
My home is gone. Where's the design in that?
Theo asks.
I cannot yet see it.
I know what it is you saw.
Back with Elrond and Prince Durin, they defy the king and persist to dig. They share a moment regarding the forfeiture of the rock-breaking contest.
No! You lost on purpose?
Durin exclaims. Mine was never to beat you, but to gain your heir a little while longer. They discover a rich vein of mithril, but King Durin is not all too pleased. He has young Ned Stark removed while he clasps a nugget of mithril, and the prince must then face his father's disappointment.
How do you expect me to move mountains, father? If you fall to pieces when I dig a single hole?
There is a clash of juxtaposing perspectives that takes place between the present and the future king, which inevitably dissolves into bitterness and dismissal.
Consigning your allies to death is not tempering. Elrond is as much a brother to me as if he'd been fired in my own mother's womb.
Enraged, the old king removes Prince Durin's neckpiece and effectively disowns his son.
Leave it. It is not yours anymore.
Have you also noticed how I don't have many, if any, reference made from Jackson's Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies when recapping these exchanges in Khazad-dûm? While it is perhaps possible to do so here also, nothing leaps out so blatantly and as gear-grindingly obvious as other narrative strands elsewhere in this series. There just seems a vast difference in the care and the quality with the Khazad-dûm narrative. Long may it last. Returning to the Half-Foots, and as Nori awakens, we learn that the grove has revitalised with a rich harvest. The seers, or witches, or whatever they're meant to be, have also returned, and appear to be searching for not Gandalf. As Nori seeks to redirect them, they reappear before her, and Largo rushes to her defence, brandishing a torch before these witches, these seers, these wraiths. It extinguishes of the fire and goes on the counter-offensive, only immolating the grove and then disappearing. Mighty kind of them to just spare the Half-Foots and vanish. But oh noes, the grove! Arriving at the Númenórean encampment, Isildur's horse refuses to go home. Please, Beric. Please, pleads Elendil.
He won't listen to you,
says Elendil.
He won't listen to any of us.
A distressed Elendil lets Beric canter free.
Turn this fellow free. He has seen enough of war.
I should never have pulled the elf on board. I should have left her in the sea where I found her.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
While inside a medical hut for the wounded, and where no-name extras showcase the horrors inflicted from the battle and the eruption's aftermath, Theo is reunited with his mother, Bronwyn, and Dorinda, who are just absolutely fine and dandy. Hooray for happy families. Alicia then meets with Queen Regent Muriel, Elendil advises Queen Regent Muriel that a garrison will remain behind to assist the Southlanders in resettling while searching for further survivors. Elendil and Alicia have a brief stare down, and then Alicia attempts to humble herself.
No one kneels in Numenor.
You are not in Numenor. Neither of you are. The fault of that is mine alone.
And herein lies the conundrum when using verbal cues that only hearken to a prior work where it made more sense within that given context, and where here it just often feels forced. The Rings of Power seldom delivers those emotional beats, certainly when it intentionally draws comparison to prior works, whether through cinematic effect or language. And one key reason for this is the poor fit with the existing narrative. Why does Galadriel believe she carries of some overwhelming burden and responsibility, and akin to Frodo through the language cues? Why seek to explore a father's grief with losing his son when we know that Isildur lives, assuming this is supposedly intended as canon? Where are the stakes? Even Jackson ran afoul of this with the Hobbit trilogy, and I'd argue frequently, where he sought to replicate his successes with The Lord of the Rings when the story lacked the appropriate narrative drive on such a grandiose scope and scale as the War of the Ring. Back with the Half-Foots, Snorri pouts and sulks.
Pity's sake, Brandyfoot, give us a moment to weep.
Give them a moment, for pity's sake.
But then Largo Brandyfoot has his say.
We don't slay dragons. Not much for digging jewels. But there is one thing we can do, and I warrant, better than any Cleachal in all of Middle-earth. We stay true to each other.
What if we hold true to each other?
What does it even mean to stay true to each other? Sadek and company were happy to just leave your hobo ass behind a few episodes ago. Nori then chooses to depart after not Gandalf.
To help my friend. Going off trail? Now? Alone?
She won't be alone. Mr. Frodo's not going anywhere without me.
You girls are not going anywhere, not without me.
We're coming too. We'll have to send us home tied up in a sack to stop it.
You go into those woods, you might not ever come out alive.
But Melva is having none of it.
They might, if a trail find a way to go with them. The Brandyfoot girl was right to help him. Was right all along.
Sadek sighs.
You know, Melva, just once. Once it would be grand if you weren't right all the time.
When has she ever been right? The one time she's claimed anything, and that we've witnessed, is that Sadek Burrows should decaravan the Brandyfoot family and that not Gandalf was nothing but trouble. If it hadn't been for not Gandalf, she'd have become Dogtucker. Back with Alicia, Bronwyn and Dorindia, we learn that Halbrand is alive.
These wounds need elvish medicine.
This is beyond my skill to heal. He needs elvish medicine.
Can he ride?
How do I know? Ride hard. Don't look back.
And an ambulance siren. I suppose it was inevitable that any suggestion of a drinking game and with the Rings of Power would get out of hand. Durin laments how he failed Elrond, but Disa counsels.
That mithril belongs to us.
And take it for me. For us. Yes, we meant for us.
Well, I got one in there for the Khazad-dûm narrative. With a throw of a single leaf and the order to seal up the vein, we get the inevitable with the re-emergence of Durin's Bane. Finishing with Adar, the orcs chant,
Hail Adar, Lord of the Southlands.
Adar, however, rejects this.
No, that is the name of a place that no longer exists.
Waldrick approaches and asks him,
What should we call it instead, Lord Father?
And I kid you not, we receive a title card change from the Southlands to Mordor. With only a few remaining loose ends, we shall press on to the final episode. I'd always intended to finish what I'd started here, and I do look forward to afterward. And fortuitously, it would seem likely that Season 2 faces further delays. Who knows when it will finally air, and to this point, does anyone honestly care? One more to go, and I now can only anticipate a whopping hangover come the morrow.